Hello, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to open the Environmental Revolution panel of this online conference. For those who don't know me, my name is Inês Costa, and I'm an environmental engineer, a circular economy and donut economics enthusiast, and I'm also Secretary of State for the Environment of Portugal. And I am no stranger to footwear production. I made my master thesis on sustainable production in traditional industries, focusing precisely on the footwear sector in Portugal. It was a time of great impulse and innovation of the sector, with Portuguese design placing a foot in the door instead of merely producing everybody else's brand's designs and specifications, and environmental concerns were beginning to settle in, mainly through natural material use, better resistance and durability, removing toxic materials from the production line, finding a second life for industry's waste. The main ambition at the time was to have an eco-label for all national footwear. But at the strategic level, environment was not so much beyond thinking of waste, health and safety, material efficiency, or certifications. And times now have changed. The world today uses more resources than the planet can sustain. If we keep current levels of global consumption, by 2050, we will need the equivalent of 3 Earths to sustain us. In our lifetime, we are not talking about some distant future. The catch is, there really is no planet B. There is a temptation to say that innovation and technology will solve everything. The problem is, so far, it hasn't. Yes, we may be emitting less carbon per GDP, but the same isn't true for material consumption. We have become more efficient, but rebound effects do happen, and we have also become more disposable. It's true that in some cases, disposability gave security, in other cases the chance to access high-end design or technology at a lower cost, but it also became an open road for a strong stimulus to consumption. And with it, with mass volumes comes also pollution, and an unsustainable use of resources. I could talk about plastics, but here I am talking about clothes, about footwear, about fashion. Fashion is a huge business. Growth in clothing consumption is estimated to increase by 4.5% each year, more than double the average growth in global GDP. The European Environment Agency is clear. The consumption of clothing, footwear, and home textiles in the European Union uses 1.3 tons of raw materials and more than 100 cubic meters of water per person every year. Let me stress that. We are talking about per capita numbers. Just to give you an idea, 100 cubic meters of water is enough to sustain a family of 3 for over 3 years. And the emissions associated with this segment tend to increase. In 2017, it is estimated that all sectors generated around 650 kilos of CO2 equivalent per person. But there is a catch. Only 25% of these emissions are accounted for within Europe. And in the case of raw materials, only 15% of these are supplied domestically. So we are facing a huge challenge. How can we decarbonize the value system for footwear if much of its value system is outside Europe? How can you be more effective in managing your limited amounts of raw materials and components and guaranteeing materials for the future? How do you move from a linear take, make, dispose model into a circular one? We need to think about externalities. By not factoring in emission costs, depletion costs, low prices ultimately generate 2 important phenomena. First, the longevity of the products, as they are designed and produced to last for a short time, often with mixtures of materials that make recycling pretty much impossible, and so cheap that they are better thrown away than fixed. And second, it means that by paying less with less quality, we attach less personal value to what we buy. Footwear and clothes also become disposable. And this poses a problems for reuse, for repair, for remanufacture, and even for recycling. This is where the systemic approach I talked about earlier comes into play. The principles you have already heard of. Design for zero pollution, keep the material in use, and regenerate. And particularly in the case for this industry, design is a big deal. 80% of a product's environmental impact is blocked at this stage. Therefore, it is essential to empower current and future designers, in addition to managers, with the skills and the tools to incorporate these principles into the product, production, and business and make them scale. This is a major focus of the Circular Economy Action Plan, to guarantee that if a component breaks or if a product just goes out of style, that still has a life afterwards. Even if it's not as the original product, the components can still be recovered and reused. That is what, for example, the Portuguese footwear brand worked on. A shoe design that could be disassembled and remanufactured, even upgraded, using a take-back system and coordinating with footwear companies with skills in footwear repair, like in Portugal. Portuguese gets a customer for life and a chance to introduce other business models like leasing, which incentivizes retaining ownership and responsibility for the materials that you are using. To achieve the ambition of the Green New Deal, industrial transformation must go beyond renewable energy, beyond energy efficiency or decarbonized mobility. The sun and the wind have plenty of energy to give us, but we simply do not have enough materials to go around for much longer, or even to be able to convert all that energy into useful energy. We therefore believe that the real challenge lies upstream of this system. It lies in innovation companies, in materials, in design, in business models, in communication and management of consumer and citizen expectations of their social affirmation through what they buy. If it is this combined approach that will minimize waste, material and financial waste, develop viable options for service, for sharing, for collection, for resale, which will also include development of materials and components that facilitate recovery. This will bring durability and customer loyalty. And this approach must also be inside the factory, not just in the product. It must be in the building, in the shop, in the equipment that you buy, in the day-to-day operations, in the worker's DNA. Perhaps the leap to that crossover across the various value segments of the industry, including the domestic market, is missing. This is because once and for all, we have to devise solutions for everyone and put an end to the idea that this environment thing is only for a privileged few. It is by no coincidence that the Ministry of Environment and Climate Action signaled the textile and footwear sectors as the ones capable of delivering more innovation and new business models centered on circular economy. Today, the National Footwear Association has a sustainable development strategy incorporating much of this type of innovation, the kind that preserves instead of depleting. We need to incentivize these solutions, to make them competitive in the market, not by making them cheaper, but by making sure the true costs of unsustainable options are visible to the consumer, being by price or by other instruments. To answer the 2050 challenge, this vision must go beyond business models and must go into them and transform them into product design. It must be to do well instead of being less bad. That will be decisive if we want to ensure that there is a future. And there will certainly be a lot of future for the footwear if we have that vision. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very good discussion moving forward. Thank you.